Howdy, howdy, Sue Devil here, and welcome to my Game 4 prep for Shadow Online Gaming's tournament. The three previous games I have forgot to mention. Janet, on occasion, if you haven't gone and subscribed, go and subscribe. You can watch our battle from his perspective and go and see it from Shadow Online Gaming's perspective because he's also posting that battle. The same with Black Iron Battles and Shadow Online Gaming himself. Now this fourth game, I'm playing against Jet R. Now Jet doesn't play a whole lot of multiplayer. He's mostly campaign. He plays a lot of campaign and a lot of varied campaign. He has had a match against Shadow Online Gaming. I think that's the only multiplayer he has up on his channel. So I tried to take some notes on his multiplayer games and I watched some of his campaigns as well. Like he's got a Clan Angren campaign, and I'm a sucker for all Dowie content, no matter who's putting it out. And some of the notes that I've made on him, one of the things that, as a campaign player myself, I really like symmetry. And you'll notice a lot of campaign players really also like that symmetry. Either having, if you have a regiment of renown, one regiment of renown, it's nice to put two regiments of the same quality with them instead of three, because then you'd have a line that didn't quite look right. Or if you're going to have a front line, you like to have them centered, and then your one spear on each flank and these types of things. And that's generally the case with campaign players, because you kind of learn that technique, and a lot of campaign players like myself really just like the aesthetics of good symmetry, and that is true for Jet and as well. He does kind of like to have his 4 to 6 archers, one cav on each side, anti-large, and he's very good on his micro too. If you go look at his game 2 with Shadow Online Gaming, where he plays the High Elves, he does really uses his Dragon Princes well, and does Hammer and Anvil, tracks down artillery. He's quite good on his micro and doesn't tend to forget units. That is a skill that is easy to lose when you're a campaign player, because micro isn't as important as the strategic part of the campaign and making sure you have a good army. But he will definitely move his cav around, hammer and anvil. He likes to have some range deployed out front. He will vanguard deploy. He'll deploy very wide. He'll deploy narrow. He's got a kind of a wide range of deployments. He does like to deploy on terrain. So he won't just deploy in the center of the map. That's one of the traits that a lot of multiplayer players have. They'd like to deploy dead front, dead center in the map, and right on the white line, and then go fight. Whereas you see a lot of campaign players will generally like to use the terrain or deploy back, or use some of these types of advantages, which really makes quite a big difference in campaign, when the health of your units really matters, when you have to fight 2, 3, and 4 battles in a row, as opposed to multiplayer, where you don't care if you really lose a unit. I mean, you don't want to lose units, but once the battle is over, you don't have to worry about your units healing and everything else like that. So he does consider his deployment very carefully. He doesn't string out his units, so I've made a note that he could be vulnerable to artillery and spells like wind blasts and these types of things, or the pendulum spell, and these kind of spells, because of the nature of deploying in straight lines and having fairly packed units. It could be vulnerable to some of those spells. Sometimes you will bring magic, sometimes you won't. Again, in campaign, often you have one lord per unit, and you don't use magic in every army, so it's easy to get used to not having magic in your army or a caster. So these are some of the notes that I made. I haven't he does like the Lizardmen, but only in campaign, hasn't played them in multiplayer. So I was thinking about his units and how he would think about the Tomb Kings, and I wondered, well, is he going to bring Mazdamundi or Kroq-Gar or just a Sour Swordblood? And I figured he'd bring Kroq-Gar because Kroq-Gar is good anti-large and, could bring all the items with him. I don't know. That's Kroq-Gar fully loaded up. This was my guess, that he was going to bring Kroq-Gar because Kroq-Gar is anti-large, causes terror, and the Tomb Kings have those big constructs, and Kroq-Gar could put a hurt on him. Now, I wasn't sure if he was going to bring magic or not. I guessed that he wouldn't, and opt for just some basic infantry, maybe 4 infantry and then maybe 2 temple guards, something like that, maybe a bigger line. And I thought for sure he does like some cavalry on the side, and they do have some Cold One Spear Riders, so maybe 2 cav on the side, something like that, to really focus on the side, and then maybe some monsters. Now, I know I was really drawn to the Rev Crystal Bastiladon, and I thought maybe that would be something he would consider. These armies are very expensive, and they get really expensive really fast, so I'm just kind of thought my way through where he was going to be, but he does like to have some archers and some skirmishers, so possibly some chameleon skinks could drop a unit like that. He doesn't take a lot of high tier infantry, so maybe some spearmen, maybe some sour spears or something on his edges on the back, so he can have a little bit of skirmish, 2 skirmishers on the side, kind of something like that. I wasn't really sure. He could bring some skink cohorts for some edge defense. Really hard to predict what he's going to bring with the Lizardmen, and no matter what he brings, the story is the same with the Tomb Kings, in that all the infantry for the Lizardmen are just going to outclass the Tomb Kings, because these Saurus warriors are just fantastic. They're really, really strong. They're going to be able to outclass the even the Tomb Guards, anti-infantry. They only have 50 armor, 42 weapon strength, 32 and 41, and you look at these Saurus warriors, they're 28, 34 with 52 weapon strength and 60 armor, so they just generally outclass the Tomb King's armor. So I wasn't really sure what he would bring. This is not really representative, but I thought, well, Kroq-Gar, that seemed pretty logical, and these 2 Cold One Spear Riders, and then some type of infantry, potentially some type of skirmish. He could bring up Pterodon Riders even with the fire. So these do fire attacks, even put like something like that up in the air. Hard to say precisely what he was going to do. And on top of that, I've done enough research on the Tomb Kings to know that their infantry is very weak, and when I was going through their builds, I really, really like these Ushabti with Great Bow, armor piercing, and the Chosen of the Gods. It was something that I considered and thought might be fun, but I had a different idea when I went around and did this build. Now, first of all, these Carrion, I just love them. 350, 26 melee attack, 46 melee defense, 40 weapon strength, 100 speed. These are an unbelievable value. I knew I was going to bring these guys no matter what, because if they come across some chameleon skinks or Pterodon Riders, they can just go up, and even though they may not win that fight, they can bog them down. And Arkhan the Black is really the meta pick. He has some very good abilities, but with Arkhan the Black, you can't use this Tomb Blade of Arkhan, which is really one of the things that makes him pretty amazing, because it affects all allies in range, and if he recharges if you're engaged in melee, it imbues fire damage and replenishes hit points of combatants, heals injured before resurrecting. So you use that, it's like a big soul stealer. It's really, really good, just a regeneration type effect. But I had a different idea with my base army. I wanted to use Settra the Imperishable. Now, when I look at Settra, the abilities I like are Of course, his curse causes damage to combatants if his hit points are lower than 50%. You get one usage of it. It lasts for 15 seconds. Strong versus multiple combatants. The Restless Dead is really the one I liked. It resurrects dead combatants and greatly replenishes hit points of combatants. Now, the Tomb Kings have a faction mechanic where as you lose infantry, you get heals. So this procs 4 times and then you get a Ushabti summon. So my idea was I was going to use those 4 heals with cheaper infantry and try and blast through those 4 phases of healing with this heal on top of it, the Restless Dead, and get to my Ushabti really, really quick. That was kind of the thinking that I had in there. Now, Unyielding Will, okay. That's a pretty good ability, actually. And Wrath of Petra, I did kind of like this. It's an explosion, it causes magical and fire, but it makes it so he can run away. Now for his spells, my idea again was to proc this Restless Dead as quickly as I could. So for the spells, I didn't want the incantation of Desiccation, the Vortex spell, major magical damage, but I really wasn't interested in that Vortex or the Righteous Smiting. I'll go over that later, but I just want to use the Incantation of Vengeance. Causes damage to combatants. It's cheap. 11 Winds of Magic. This Incantation of Protection, 44% physical resistance for Cetra, and the Incantation of Cursed Blades, which is only 4 Winds of Magic, 20% weapon damage, 20% armor piercing damage. The idea being that this is on a 38-second cooldown, this is on a 30-second cooldown, this is on a 28-second cooldown, and the ability lasts not for very long, 7 seconds, but if I can get 21 seconds every 90 seconds or so of combat on top of my heals, I was going to do good. Now, I know this infantry is not going to stand up no matter what, so my idea was to bring cheap infantry, 4 units of Skeleton Warriors, and for those large units like Kroq-Gar, or if he brings a Rev Crystal, or for the Cold One Spear Riders, I wanted to have more spears, so you can have 5 maximum units of any one type on this. So 4 Skeleton Warriors, 5 spears, 4 carrion. Now, as these guys die, they'll go through their heals really fast, was the idea. I can use my carrion wherever I want. They'll get their faction heals, and they'll be getting the heals from Cetra. So, I really considered these. I have quite a bit of gold left over. There's this kind of cheap build. Didn't really consider the Skeleton Archers. I didn't think they were going to be good enough, but I did look at these Ushabti Greatbow. They're solid. They can put a lot of pressure on the big dinosaurs, and they can stay in the back. The map we're going to be playing on is a little bit wonky. Has a lot of trees. I didn't know if I wanted to go with that, because if he comes down the trees or we get into a fight, we're not going to get the best shots. Maybe that's good. Plus, I know he's really good with his cav. He can hunt down artillery, hunt down archers. He brings 2 units of Cold One Spear Riders, and he will be able to find his way to those Ushabti. So instead, I thought, for fun, I want to go with 3 really big monsters. And the way things work out, I wanted to go with the Hero Titan, because he does magic and fire damage and armor piercing. He has this Shem's Burning Gaze. He gets 2 uses of it just by having him. He also has Spirit Leech. He gets 1 use of that. And he has Spirit Conduit, so he replenishes the winds of magic, and he causes fear and terror. So I thought that'd be fun to use. I mean, I've never used a unit, and they look super cool. The other guy is this Necrosphinx. He is anti-large, so I figure he's going to be good fighting against Kroq-Gar. He does cause fear and terror as well. So bang, I've got a Necrosphinx. Now I can get one more big guy like a Kemrian War Sphinx, but they're 1800 here. But if you look, I can get a Kemrian War Sphinx here for only 550. Now, is that enough value? I mean, is that the right value? I don't know, but it just seems super cool. My Lord is expensive. These guys are expensive. And then in my army, I really wanted to make sure I could heal those constructs, so I wanted to get a Necrotech. Now, the Necrotech, I wanted him to be able to move around, and I like the idea of having some anti-infantry. And with his abilities, I don't need this Wrath of the Creator that's only affects units that are constructs. I kind of wanted to keep him back, or the Stone Shaper. I don't have any missile. But here's the Restore, replenishes the hit points, and does replenish quite a bit. You can use it twice, so I really wanted to have that. And for his items, the Vembraces of the Sun, -9 melee attack around himself. I wanted to keep him safe, but this, the Elixir of Might, for only 76 gold, one use, 50% weapon damage plus 26 melee attack, and I can cast it on anybody else in my lineup. So this was how I sort of developed this. Now, this doesn't necessarily take into account what Jet is going to bring. It's more of a, an idea as opposed to a sound strategy. The idea being I take Cetra, the Hero Titan, and the Necrosphinx, and I try and goon one thing at a time, and I try and use all my other units to muck everything up and get through my faction heals really fast, and have the additional heals with this Restless Dead, so that they'll all last longer, so that all of them will receive hopefully 4 of the faction heals and at least 3 of the heals from Cetra to really keep them lasting longer. And then, yeah, they're still going to lose to Saurus Warriors for sure, but they'll just last a little longer. And that heal goes off on the Carrion as well. And this hold my Necrotech back, get off my 2 heals on whichever one of these guys needs it the most, and then that's pretty much it. So I think I went through and looked at some sort of ranking up. I think these guys actually, these guys rank up 26 to 46, and they go 27 and 48, so I wanted to really rank these guys up. I'm not sure precisely what I did for the rest of my abilities. Let me see, items. No, I definitely didn't have that. I might have picked up some extra abilities here. These guys are correct. Got them on the Sphinx. Abilities. Did I use? Nope, not Unyielding Will. Didn't have either one of these, and this is my spell loadout. So maybe I just made sure I chevron these guys up and did something like this. Yeah, it might have been something like that, just to give them a little bit more staying power in the pocket so they could last a little longer. Had a bit of a harder time thinking about this because I don't have a lot of reference material to look at what Jet's going to bring, and I never had a chance to play with this army at all. And unfortunately, I just didn't get a chance to play with the Tomb Kings once, aside from playing against the AI and just trying a few things. But my basic idea is that when I get into the battle, we'll just go and take a look at the battlefield, and what it looks like is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to line my skeleton warriors up front, my skeleton spears in the back. I'm going to put all my Carrion together in case he has something powerful, just so they can goon something, and put my Necrosphinx, my Necrotech in the back, and try and get off all of my abilities, and then just try and goon lord after lord. So this is kind of an odd map, and like I said, it has trees, it has terrain. I don't know if these units are going to do very well in that. That's why I didn't want to take bows, but basically I did do some testing to see how tough these guys were. The idea was I'm going to bring these guys and put them into boxes so they can last longer. I'm not going to let them sit there though. I'm going to actually give them an attack order this time around. And grab my Spearmen, do sort of the same thing with them, put them into boxes in the second row, and there, there is some magic that can sort of hurt me. I'll put all my carrion together in a group on the side, maybe like that. I think they can Vanguard deploy. Yes, they can. So Vanguard deploy them, and just put all these guys into a single group, start the battle, and then just issue a command to go fight. And just let them do whatever they're going to do. I'll take my Necrotect and maybe try and hide him in the... Oh, that's what I'm... Is he on his chariot? Oh yeah, he's on his chariot. Maybe try and hide him in the back a little bit. I don't know if he can hide. He probably can't. But you can put him so the terrain won't allow him to be seen very easily. And then just grab these guys, group them. Grab these four, group them, and lock them. And basically, put Cetra kind of up here. Get that Necrosphinx on one side, and really try and use that Shim's Burning Gaze and the Spirit Leech early, and then just grab these guys and goon whatever I come across. Whatever the army looks like. So, very, very simple plan. I'm not even going to think about my skeleton warriors at all. I'm going to let them go through the Realm of Souls Tier 1. That's 7 seconds of regeneration, Tier 2, Tier 3, and then I get that Ushabti. So, this was the idea, is that I could get through them really fast with a lot of infantry, and these carrion also add to that, and they receive the heals. Now, Cetra receives those heals too, but he can't be healed by this Necrotect, unfortunately. Only the Hero Titan and the Necrosphinx can. So I'm just going to monitor and see who's taking more of a beating and just heal that guy. Plus, I mean, these guys look pretty freaking awesome. Like, that guy looks amazing. And Cetra on his Kemrian War Sphinx, just... They did such a good job on the artwork on the Tomb Kings. Just utterly amazing. This guy looks so badass. I mean, just look at that face. It just looks incredible. Like, and you get closer and it still looks good. Fantastic. So that was my idea behind the army picks. Now, I don't know what he's going to bring. Again, I was pretty sure he was going to bring Kroq-Gar and 2 units of Cold One Spear Riders just to deploy out to the side to get side pressure to get after Ushabti Great Bows, sort of this sort of thing, and some sort of spears and infantry, maybe Pterodon Riders with Fire Leech Bolas, because some of my units are weak to fire. Where is this? There we go. Fire weakness minus 25%. I don't think anybody... Well, this guy is weak to fire, the Necrotect. This guy is not, and this guy is not. And my infantry is also not weak to fire. Nor is my carrion. So, but if he's got these guys up in the air, I can just send my carrion 4 against 1 against these Pterodon Riders and just try and goon them out of the air. Otherwise, if there are Chameleon Skinks, I can just send the carrion after the Chameleon Skinks. Otherwise, I can just leave them up in the air and save them to chase down routing units to make sure they don't come back. That was the entire idea of the build. So I will just exit out of here. And we'll get back to the main screen. I think it's kind of fun, playing with these massive, Hero Titan, Necrosphinx, and Kemrian War Sphinx. Kind of having a wide chaff army that can heal itself. Maybe they can heal through a lot of that damage and last. I want to make them last as long as possible just so these 3 guys can goon stuff. And, put the heals, try and get off both his... I really just want to get off both of his heals and this Elixir of Might onto either the Hero Titan or the Necrosphinx, depending on where it is, or even Cetra. But Cetra's got 36 melee attack, 42 melee defense, and 490 weapon damage. This guy has 550 weapon damage, 42 and 50. And this guy also has 550. So it'll be better spent on the Necrosphinx or the Hero Titan, because that 50% weapon damage is going to be more meaningful alongside the plus 26 melee attack, and then get the heals on them. That's my entire plan. It's not complicated, which is good for me. Point, click, and then use abilities. Point, click, use abilities. Point, click, use abilities. Okay, that's my plan. I've got pretty beat up a couple of times in a row, and hopefully I've learned my lesson a little bit, and I can be a little more aggressive in this game, and point, click, use abilities. It's a very non-dwarfy, maybe, or maybe it is dwarfy. Usually I let people come to the dwarf lines. I'm so used to that. Being more aggressive with infantry is something that's more difficult to do, of course. So that's all I have to say. Sort of a shorter video. I don't have any gameplay that I can show you with these guys, and don't really have a lot of research on Jet because he's a campaign player and only has 3 multiplayer games, none with the Lizardmen. So I made some brief notes, just that he's really good with his micro, actually. He's just like, watch that second game between him and Shadow where he plays the High Elves. It's really, really good to watch. He's quite strong on the edges and with his micro, but you'll see what I see in that, this is the campaign player in me. I look at his formation and I like it. Symmetrical. He's got four or 5, I think, archers out front, 6 spears in the back, and 1 unit of cav on each side. Just looks sharp. Everything's symmetrical. Looks nice and neat, and it warms my dwarven heart. So I was thinking that there'll be some sort of symmetry to the army and 1 cav on each side, and that's about it. Hard to say what everything's going to be. These Saurus warriors are so good, especially against Tomb King's infantry. So I could see that. And these Fire Leech Bolas, definite possibility. Really wasn't sure. I think that, the Carrion is a good counter pick in case those are up in the air. Not really sure. But anyways, that's my thinking. Short video. Hope you found it interesting. I'd love to hear some comments down below. What do you think of the build? What do you think of the idea of really, rather than getting tough infantry, trying to let my faction heals and Cetra the Imperishable's Restless Dead heal, make them effectively last longer. Really, just not to make them stronger, but just make them harder to kill. It's almost like just mucking them up for longer. That's my whole idea behind this build for the infantry side. If you've played the Tomb Kings and tried this mechanic and tried to play like this, I'd love to hear from you. If you've used the Hero Titan or the Necro Sphinx or Cetra or the Necrotech, again, would love to hear your thoughts on it. I have no idea how this army's going to stand up to the Lizardmen, but I think we're going to have fun. So with that said, hope you found it interesting, and I will see you soon.